friends, it's Amy at Doki Doki Forest. I'm so glad you are here. Welcome to the winter edition of hashtag using the same images. Now, Ker over at My Take at the Lake and I are doing this hashtag together, and we invite anyone to play along using any of the same magazine or same images where two people have the same images and use them in their glue book, and then kind of compare and see if anything is similar and what's different. And the whole idea just being that if everyone got the same images, we would probably place them all differently on our page. And that's what's so cool. You know, we can all have the same materials to start with, but the way each one of us sees things and puts things together is different. And that is what we love to see. Now, these are all of the birds and blooms images that we harvested in a previous video. Half of it is on my channel and half is over on Ker's. I'll leave those down below. And you can feel free to play along if you have the same magazine. You can collect the same images by watching our harvest. And now I'm taking all those images and figuring out some pages with them. And Ker will have a video as well for you to go check out using the same images and putting them together in a way that she likes. So it'll be cool to see what she's come up with. Now, what if you don't have these images or you don't have this magazine and you want to play along? We have got you covered. We have free winter digital kits. They're 4 pages we each came up with. We each have different pages and they're on our Patreon. You can download and print them out, and it's just free images for you to use. And we're going to be creating pages with those images in a video that should be coming up hopefully next week. So feel free to pop over, download those, print them out, play with them and glue, and then we'll see what we all come up with. Okay, so birds and blooms. It was a lot of birds, if you can imagine. Oh, the mail truck's going by outside. You might hear a little rumble behind me. But yeah, there were a lot of birds. Not even too many blooms. There were some bushes and things, you know, but it is winter, so it was a lot of words and a lot of birds. So here we go. We have 2024 Bird Tales Winter Edition. And what's going on here? Well, there's a little bit of a story. There's an invitation that has gone out for a winter feast in the forest, and all of the birds are invited. And by the way, I know that this is sped up. Don't worry. I will go through the pages and show you slowly at the end. I only speed this up because this was hours worth of gluing and sorting and cutting and kind of humming and hawing about, like, you know, oh, this looks good here. Nah, I'm going to move it over here. So I'm doing this part quickly, but then I promise you can have a slower, closer look later. So the invitation has gone out. There's a bird party. And the bird that you saw on the previous page received his invitation, and he has some questions. He's saying, well, what kind of party is this? What's going to be there? And they're saying, oh, we know what birds like. We are going to have suet. Not just any suet. This is going to be the best suet you have ever had in your life. We got all the flavors. We got peanut butter, whatever other flavors there are. See, I'm human. I only know peanut butter. But the birds, they know. They can mix up all kinds of things. And, you know, so these birds are like, it sounds pretty good. And so these birds are flying in. They're checking out the suet. They're giving it a taste test. We've got woodpeckers coming in. We've got cardinals, blue jay, the tufted titmouse. We've got all kinds of birds flying in because it is winter and they are hungry, and the suet is looking mighty fine. And I was really enjoying blending all these birds together. It is a lot of birds, but I was having a good time trying to figure out what to do with them and how to get them on the pages without it looking exactly like it did in the magazine. And I think I've managed to mix it up enough where, it still looks like a Birds and Blooms magazine, but it's at least organized in a different way than it was in the magazine. And I've made kind of a story, which as we flip through each page, I'll kind of just tell you what is going on. And, it's not a big story or anything like that, but it's just one of those things where when I'm gluing, I do enjoy letting my mind wander, and I think it honestly does help me create the pages when I have a story. Both the page I'm working on and kind of to know where I'm going to head with the other ones. Now, I don't know if this is going to always happen, but it did happen with these birds. And it's funny because when we did the fall edition of the hashtag using the same images, I had a happy ducks giving video where it was heavy on the ducks. There was a lot of ducks. So there seems to be a lot of birds, and that video wasn't even using a Birds and Blooms. That was just like I think it was Country Living, and there just happened to be a lot of ducks. So it's kind of funny. There's just been a lot of birds. A lot of birds showing up. So I thought it would be fun to add some words here. We had so many words, and I'm trying to figure out how to use them and have it make sense. So I put don't fret, because the birds are like, well, do you even know how to serve suet? Those birds on the left are kind of wondering. And so whoever's hosting it, is saying, don't worry, we know how to keep birds happy. We know how to serve up suet. We have got you covered. And I liked having this image with the woodpecker and the tufted titmouse hanging there. It almost looks like they blend right in to the page, and it looks like they're closer to the camera. So it sort of gives a more 3D effect to the picture. And then because I don't want to have it just end there at the top of that suet cage, I put the words there. And that way it all kind of blends in a little better. Okay, so we know we have suet. The suet is covered. But we also have a lot of images with these berries. So I thought, well, these birds now are like, well, hold on. Suet is great, but are you going to be able to serve those of us who enjoy berries? And then again, they're feeling confident. They say, oh, we have got the most acrobatic foragers. These birds know. They know the birds, not the birds. They know the berries that birds love. They know when they're ripe. They know how to get them. They can pick them, and they're going to bring them all in here for everyone to enjoy. This is going to be a feast. So this isn't just for the birds that like suet. This is also for the birds who like berries. And so my idea in my head was that the birds on the left are the ones that are like, we got this, we're foraging. And the ones on the right are the ones that are like, I don't know, we're pretty good at getting berries. Are you guys going to be as good as we are? And that's why the one on the left there, that northern flicker, is like, I'm a professional. I've got this. And the waxwing on the right's like, yeah, but I'm Berry Poppins, so I also have got this. Is this the most bird-brained story you've ever heard? Possibly. These are just the things that I do to entertain myself while I'm making these pages. I just have these birds sort of talking, complaining or whatever in my head. It just sort of makes it all fun. And I'm trying to maximize each page, get on my images, get on my words. I was trying to use everything, and I only wound up with a couple of numbers and I think one little phrase. I'll show you at the end what I wound up with or what I left. But I really did try to use most of it. And I'm also trying to figure out how to place the images so that I can cover up the white background page, because I really want it to look like it's all flowing. And I found a little phrase there that I liked, so I cut that out. And then I eventually wound up kind of taking that image apart that had the bluebird and the berries, and I'm trying to put it back together again in a way where I can blend it onto that page with the waxwing, but cover up the white, but still have the bluebird there without covering up too many of the berries. And there's always a little bit of trepidation when you have this image you really like and the scissors begin to cut and then there's no going back. Well, it's not actually true. I mean, you could just glue it back together again. But you know what I mean. It's kind of this thing where you cut the image and you're thinking like, oof, I hope that was the right decision. And I have to be honest, it is nice. Oh, we have an Amazon truck driving by now, so it's very busy right now. Sorry about that. But there's something that's really nice when I watch these videos back, because the decisions have all already been made. It's almost more enjoyable for me to sit back and watch the page come together than it was when I was working on it. And I loved working on it, but there's just so many decisions. You have to just be like in your head a little bit at least, to try to figure out like, well, should I put this one here or there? So there is something really nice about just looking at the page and seeing it come together and knowing, hey, good or bad, it's already done. So that's nice. And it's like that when you flip through it too. If you have a glue book, when you're making it, it is really fun. But it's also really fun to take it out and just flip through it and just enjoy the pages you've made, the decisions that were made, the choices that you made. It's just nice to take those in and just appreciate them. And now that I've babbled on, let's see, we are still getting this page together. It was a lot of consideration going into this page and trying to craft these branches and things so that they look like they could be coming in on the page, and the bluebird is sitting on there with the waxwing. And then trying to figure out, that branch just sort of ends abruptly on the right-hand side there by the edge. So I'm just gluing something else in there to try to make it so it all flows a little more. So I don't want your eye to kind of get stuck looking at something that has like a hard edge per se. I try to like soften it so that way your eye hopefully flows around the page. I don't know. None of that's even important. The most important thing is just gluing stuff down and enjoying the process. Sometimes I overthink it, especially for these challenges, because in this particular challenge, we have like these set images that we have to use. So it's not like when you're working on your glue book and you can just kind of pick and choose at random, like, oh, this looks good. I don't like this today, or I don't want to use these words. In this case, these are things we've decided we have to use. So I love it because that's the challenge. But it does make it so that I think I have to, be a little more, not careful. I mean, I'm really just diving into it. I'm not being really careful about it, but I am giving it a lot of thought. And the other thing I was doing too was I was trying to sort the images. So because I had this idea of like the party, I was trying to sort so like all the suet kind of pictures were on those first pages. And then I was trying to get like the berry pictures all on these pages. And then as you'll see going on, like there was a page where I tried to get all the photos that had pine trees and stuff in them together, and you'll kind of see as we go along. So that was the other thing that it did help though, because I had like these little piles I had made. So before I started even gluing, I kind of sorted the images as the story started forming in my head. I was like, okay, well, I know I want to have the suet pages, then I want to get into the berry pages, and then we'll kind of go from there. And then just cleaning up the edges and rounding the corners. And then I found this little January calendar, which I liked. I thought I'd put that on the intro page. And how to serve suet. Yeah, I got that on there. Tips for peace at your feeders. So I'm just finding some words here and putting them on. And just trying to put them, I like to put them kind of on the seams of like if there's two images, and then I like to put I'm doing it again. I'm getting birds, words, and berries all mixed up. That's what this whole glue-a-thon was about. But yes, I'm trying to get all the words on in a way that makes the most sense. And we are good with the berries. So now we're going to work on the pine pictures here. So I really loved these pictures. They featured a lot of beautiful green pine branches with the needles and those gorgeous pine cones. And I really loved that. Both of these images I really loved. I didn't want to do a whole lot to them because I really liked them as is. But I was thinking what I could do is sort of add the other birds that are also in pine trees with them and just make it like a whole little, the invitation for the party has now gone out and it's reaching far and wide. So it's gone out into the pine forest. And the birds are like, a party. That sounds pretty sweet. They're going to have suet. They're going to have birdseed. They're going to have berries. I think we can make the trip for that. I think that's going to be worth it. So these birds are going to RSVP. They are going to attend this party. And there's not a whole lot I'm going to add here. I really liked the way the chickadee and the cardinal just kind of blend right into that page there. And then I can trim off the extra pine that's poking off the edges. And I can go ahead and use that if I need to cover up any kind of white space on the pages or anything like that. It's really great for just kind of trimming, like right there. I'm just trimming and using little strips of piney sort of images just to cover up that white, and again, just trying to make it blend. And there's also something that happens when you trim your images. It's just like, you see the page, but there's something when you trim it, and, if you want to round the corners, you round the corners, and then you look at it again, and it's just really nice to see. It looks finished. And that's me just gluing 2 pages together because this notebook is not already glued like 2 pages together to make them thicker and sturdier, so I'm just gluing them as I go. And some of those bird tails get trimmed off because they're so long, but that's okay. I think we can see most of their tails, so I'm happy with that. And now we are going in to the next pages. Now, we had some sort of unusual pictures that didn't really go with the winter theme. So I had all of those in their own pile as well. And they're beautiful images, but they just kind of really were much different from all of the winter images. So we had like some beautiful leaves and plants and the hummingbird and some little tiny pictures here. So I decided that in my story with this party, so the invitations went out to the birds that were all, in the pine forest. And then I thought, they would extend an invitation to the hummingbirds as well. Now, I don't know how they were going to get hummingbird food, but of course the hummingbird must regretfully decline the invitation because they have migrated south and they are no longer up north. So they can't attend the party, but just the same, they are very happy that they were invited. And as they are, I'm imagining they're writing back, so they're corresponding with letters. And the hummingbird says, thanks for asking, but right now I am here basking in the sun and visiting with friends that I get to see this time of year. And then they're telling them about like the butterflies and the other birds that live there with them and the flowers that are blooming. So they kind of each get to tell each other about the weather and what they're seeing because the hummingbird never gets to see the winter. So the hummingbird loves to hear all about the snow, and the birds up north like to hear about the tropics. And there's a little tomato plant there that has some frost, so perhaps the hummingbird has seen frost at some point, but never a full snow. So here's my very green and sort of more tropical page, and it may seem weird, but I tried to come up with a little bit of a story so that way it makes sense within the pages. And I had that word save, which I was thinking like save the date, for the winter party. And there were just enough of these tropical images. I could fit everything on the one page here and cover it all up. And I really like the way the hummingbird looks up there. I don't like the way that number 1 looks though. So I cut off the top to see how much of that number 1 would still show. And it is still there. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these little images. And these little tiny squares were on a little envelope that was like in the center of the magazine for you to like sign up for the subscription. So we did harvest that, and I thought they were cute because they look like little snapshots. So that's like the hummingbirds' pictures that they're sharing with their friends of things they've seen. And now on the right, we're going to address some perhaps concerns some of the birds had about this winter party. So we're gathering up our sparrows, our jays, and some other birds that may be sort of like pests at the feeder. The blue jay can just be kind of aggressive, and the sparrows can just sort of be a lot. Like there's just a lot of sparrows. And I had some pictures of both, so I thought, well, I could put them all on the page. And I have the other birds saying like, how do you handle aggressive feeder birds? And so then those throwing the party could be like, don't worry, we have so much food. You don't even have to worry about it. We've got enough for everybody. It doesn't matter if, 1,000 sparrows come. We are going to have you covered. The blue jays should have enough food. They won't be too bossy. We even have some peanuts for them, which they love. So no bird needs to chase away any other birds thinking, that they have to hoard all of the food, whether it's birdseed or berries or whatever. There's going to be enough. There's a place for everybody, and there's not going to be any shortage of food. So it should be just a fun event for all, even those who sometimes tend to either take over the feeder or chase the other birds away or just eat everything. And I found a little picture of a starling too that we had collected. So I thought, oh, perfect. I'll put that on the page as well, because the starlings travel in these huge flocks. So I was thinking, if they descend upon the party too, that's another bird that's like, oh my gosh, all these starlings, they came through and they cleaned the whole place out. So we have our sparrows, jays, and we're going to glue it all down now that I think I've collected all the images that we need, and I think I can cover the whole page. And I thought I was going to use that Stellar's jay, which I'm gluing on now at the bottom right there. I thought I was going to use that whole image, but I wound up just using part of it, just kind of poking in at the bottom there. That's just the way it worked out. Sometimes you think you might use a whole image and then you wind up just using part of it. And that's okay. That's just part of editing as you go. And then just getting all these sparrows on here, and I almost missed one of my sparrow pictures, and then I found it. So I was like, okay, got to get that on there. And the little starling I want to tuck behind that sparrow, but first I wanted to lay down a little bit of background, just again, so that way it would hopefully all kind of blend together. And just for my own eye, that's just what I like, is to have the whole paper covered if possible. And we got our whole stack of birds there on the left, and they all fit we can get everybody on there and just trim that pine branch just a little bit. And then once everything is glued, the edges are trimmed, I'm going in and adding some words. So I like get the scoop on these familiar friends. I thought that was cute to go with the hummingbird page because we're getting the scoop on all those tropical birds. And then I'm putting in how do you handle aggressive birds. And also at the bottom, temporarily pause feeding the flock of aggressive birds until they move on. But of course, for us, we're just going to feed them. And now we have the neighbors. So there's now a raucous party happening. These birds are all together. They are feasting, and you know how noisy it can be when one flock comes through your neighborhood. Well, how about if you have many flocks of birds, so many different ones all coming together? And the neighbors have had enough of this party. So we have some grumpy birds here. We have that, I think it's a great horned owl at the bottom, and the expression is just perfect. I mean, they are just not having it. And then the snowy owl doesn't look too pleased either. And I think it's a barred owl in the middle. That one doesn't look too upset. But, and then for some reason I added in that grosbeak. I believe it's a grosbeak on the top right there. And they're just kind of getting lumped in with the owls because I had that image left. And they do look a little grumpy. So these birds are like, what? Especially the owls. They're like, we are trying to sleep here. And we are not in the mood for all of this. Like, what is going on? It is noisy. It's the middle of the day. Come on. So we've got across the fence, 100% grumpy birds. And one owl's saying, who are you looking at? And the one at the bottom's like, you talking to me? That's like the Robert De Niro owl down there. Then on the right, this is our final page, we have our, I was going to say other guests that are not feathered, but then I'm adding a blue jay. So here come the uninvited guests, I guess. These are the raccoons and the squirrels and this blue jay. They're coming in and they're inviting themselves to the party and they're gathering up everything. And a lot of the birds at this point have left because the owls sort of scared them off. So these are kind of like the latecomers to the party, and they're like, ooh, nice, we can come in and clean all this good stuff up. We can fill our cheek pouches and bring it all home and store everything. We've got a feast here. So this is the after party. The after party is when all these guys show up, and the blue jays are still there because they never want to leave. They're just going to hang out there too. And they're having a good time. They are all enjoying the party. And I don't think the owls are going to be too happy because right when they thought, okay, good, we told those birds to stop, they stopped. Now you've got a whole new crew going in there. And I'm just filling in some space there with a little bit of green that I found from other images where I had trimmed off a little bit of tree or pine or something like that. And then I'm just trying to fit in some words, so I found, you are not listening to me. Which could have gone with the owls too. And then I almost forgot this little no bread picture, which is cute, and I thought I would just go ahead and stick it on the page like, no bread, no filler stuff. We got only good stuff at this party. Okay, so we are all done, and I'm going to now show you each page slowly so you can see it. So we have our first page here, our Winter Edition 2024 Bird Tales, with a little calendar there. It says, New Year, New Lessons, trialed and tested for your success and theirs. And then it says, Winter is for the birds, extra, Winter Feast. So that's the invitation of, oh, there's a winter feast, everybody. And this bird's like, where's the grub? So now we're like, okay, we're going to tell you about what we have to eat. And these guys are like, hey, do you know how to serve suet? Because that's what we like. And we're not going to come if it's just going to be that scattered seed all over the ground. And they say, don't fret. Did you know that we know the best feeding secrets for serving up suet? And then here is the double page berry spread. With these birds are going to be the foragers going out to get the berries. I am a professional winterberry holly. Let these acrobatic foragers go out and find the berries birds love. And these guys say, well, I don't know, you guys might be good, but we're berry poppins. We're pretty good at getting berries too. So maybe they're going to help in the end. And then the invitation is going out far and wide. It's going out to the pine forest to invite these birds. And there's a little quote down there that says, there's only one thing in life, and that's the continued renewal of inspiration. And then here's our birds on the other side, thinking about if they're going to come to the party. And then we have our hummingbird who was invited but is away for the season. But we'll tell you about all the friends that they're spending time with. So that way everyone can feel like they're at the party. Maybe they're going to do a Zoom call so they can be at the party. And then we have this page with, you know, don't worry, we got it. We can handle all of these birds that usually are pretty aggressive at the feeder. Oh, and I added the sparrow statistics because I had a few things I hadn't added. So I added sparrow statistics. It says, in 1851, house sparrows native to England were released in Brooklyn to control caterpillar populations. The rest is history. You'll find house sparrows in nearly every state. And that's true of the starlings, too. They're not native to the United States either, but they're quite prominent now. And then here are the grumpy neighbors wondering who's partying all day. I mean, some of us are trying to sleep. And the after party, late, I was going to say late night, but it's actually late day. They're still out in the daytime. So these guys are coming out, maybe it's like dusk, and they're coming out to get every last bit that they can. Nothing goes to waste. So that does it for this winter edition of Birds and Blooms. Next up, there'll be a little spread here for Valentine's, and then after that, I'm going to be doing the digital images for winter, and I'll be doing those, and Ker will be doing those. And to see what Ker did with these same images, go see her video, and I'll have that down below. And I can't wait to see how different she made her pages. And just to show you, here's what I had left that I didn't use. There was this little thing that says this maple tree's branches, a number 3, a number 2, yes, a number 2, and that was it, I think, because the rest of what I have left is just like little bits and scraps that I kept just in case I needed it. Oh, and a 3. So there's just some numbers, really, that I couldn't figure out what to do. And then the maple tree, I couldn't find a picture of a maple tree, so I didn't stick that in. It seemed to all be pines. So not too much. I pretty much used everything. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I will see you again soon.